Picking it up from where we left yesterday, to understand the difference between the northern and southern kingdoms, you need to know that immediately after the division, Jeroboam, the king of the northern kingdom, changed the worship of his people, the Israelites, from Jerusalem. He instead set up idols in two towns in his northern kingdom, the town of Dan and the town of Bethel, and declared them to be the new worship centers. These did not please God, and after some time, God sent a strong kingdom called Assyria to destroy the northern kingdom because of their worshipping of idols. The kingdom was therefore taken over and ruled by the Assyrians. The Israelites then began to intermarry with the Assyrians, which was against God's instruction to them in the days of Moses. Their intermarriage with Assyrians and other nations had them now called Samaritans, and the Jews in the southern kingdom referred to them as dogs or half-breeds. But the Jews in Judah also sinned against God by worshipping idols, and God also punished them by having their city Jerusalem destroyed by another powerful nation called Babylon. The Babylonians took them away to their country and made them slaves there for 70 years. They, however, repented and turned back to God, and God brought them back to Jerusalem, which they needed to rebuild. The Samaritans, having been happy that the Jews had been taken away, made it very difficult for them to rebuild Jerusalem after returning from their Babylonian captivity. And this only worsened their enmity. Over time, differences between the Israelites in the north, now called Samaritans, and the Jews in the south played out in their religion. The Samaritans, surprisingly, still believed in the laws of Moses. They believed in the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They believed that it was the law of God. But they refused to acknowledge any other book that God had spoken through the prophets that he had sent to Judah. The Samaritans claimed themselves to be the original sons of Abraham, which the Jews in the south completely rejected and would have nothing to do with them. Now, the Samaritans and the Jews continued to be neighbors, but they hated each other so much so that when traveling to the north of Jerusalem, Jews from the south would never pass through Samaria, even though it was the shortest route that they could use. They would use a much longer route just to avoid passing through Samaria. But Jesus was different. When going back to Cana of Galilee, his home district, which was about 88 kilometers north of Jerusalem, he chose to go through Samaria. Something special happened as Jesus passed through Samaria that only made me confirm that this man was not an ordinary man. When he got to a town called Sychar, he got the attention of the people there, and they were so impressed with him that they invited him to stay with them for 2 days. 2 days! Samaritans. That had never been heard of. Samaritans of a whole town coming together to welcome a Jew and his Jewish friends to stay with them for 2 days. It was unheard of and a miracle in itself. But what was even stranger is the fact that Jesus agreed to stay with them. This was a different kind of a Jew. Or was he also planning to be the Messiah to the Samaritans? I was really confused. Jesus always seemed to do the opposite of what you expected him to do. You could never tell where he was going to or where he was coming from. He was truly being led by the Spirit, and there was no way anyone was going to understand him unless by the power of the Spirit. Join me tomorrow as I continue with this journey.